helping our customers implement different aspects of project management and project portfolio management. We've seen that it can mean very different things to different people. So the functional requirements or the requirements of a project portfolio management function can be very different depending on where organizations are in their overall maturity of implementation of processes and implementation of tools. And this varies based on a number of factors. So it could be just the size of the organization, just the amount of money that they have to spend, and how critical something like this is to them. The second, of course, is the need and the ability to align IT initiatives to corporate objectives. And there, it is the emphasis is more on the ability because if you look at the typical maturity model of organizations, and a lot of our customers follow the CMMI or the capability maturity model, where you measure the organization's maturity from level 1 to level 5. A lot of the customers are initially at a level 1 or a 2, where they simply don't have the process capability or the process maturity to handle some of the objectives that are typical of PPM initiatives. And the third factor that we also see is what is the overall effort and time that they've already spent on streamlining just basic project and program management. And depending on the amount of effort that has been spent so far, there is a certain amount of inertia that exists in terms of implementing a new PPM tool and the new PPM initiative. So depending on the various situations that organizations are in, we've seen that PPM adoptions do not make progress beyond what we call a stage 3 adoption. And to model this sort of overall adoption model, we have come up with our own sort of framework for how organizations have tried to implement PPM tools. And this is sort of our own 5-level adoption model that starts from level 1, where there is just a basic consolidation of projects. So you have different project teams working on different projects, and at a very first level, there is a basic project consolidation that happens, and there is a effort to do cross-project reporting. And we'll go into details of each of these stages in just a bit. The second stage is where you start getting to resource consolidation, where there is an effort to track resources and track resource assignments and utilization more effectively than that may have been done earlier. The third level is where you do identification of business objectives. So there is at least a basic effort that is put in to identify what are the corporate objectives for various projects that are being done, and trying to do a basic alignment of projects to those objectives and measure them against those objectives. At the level 4, there is resource optimization. So now you're looking at organization that has already implemented some level of project portfolio management. They have implemented sort of overall visibility of resources across the organization, and now they're trying to see what is the actual sort of different scenarios and different demands for budgets that you might have on projects and resources, and try and do an optimization of resources on across those different projects. And the final thing is the business objectives optimized, where you basically now are at that level where your overall project portfolios are sort of visible, your resource picture is clear, and now you're doing a medium to long term alignment of demand and on actual project assignments to make effective portfolio models of projects, demand, applications, and do a resource optimization on an overall basis. And I just wanted to remind everybody that you can go to a full screen mode for your presentations by clicking on the button. I think it's the third button on the bottom left, which allows you to go to full screen mode if you wanted to go into that mode. So let's just take a quick look at what are the various stages that organizations go through, and what are some of the challenges that they face as they encounter or as they prepare themselves for each of those stages. So if you look at the first stage, which is project consolidation, what organizations are doing is essentially taking stock of what the overall projects are in the organization that they're handling, what the various priorities are for each of the projects, and just getting an accurate accurate view of exact project status and the forecast of completion. So this is moving beyond the single project level and going to cross project tracking of project effort, project time, and overall resource picture. So the typical project PPM features that are needed is at least basic cross project dashboarding and reports, and organizations start with that without doing any real sort of formal portfolio definition or portfolio analysis. One is able to define cross project dashboards and reports, and based on that just get into a sort of uniform method of data collection and reporting, and looking at it from a centralized perspective, centralized organizational perspective. What in reality happens also is that because the focus is purely on the sort of cross project dashboards, the PMO, which is typically involved in driving these efforts, continues to feed data from existing sources, whether those data is coming from spreadsheets, data is coming from individual PPM or project management tools, Microsoft Project on people's desktops, or a variety of homegrown tools. The PMO continues to feed the data from existing sources. So that's typically a first level portfolio management effort that we've seen a lot of our organizations and customers handle. In the next stage, which is resource consolidation, the objectives typically are to ensure that all resources are visible. That first of all there is a centralized resource pool that is defined, and everyone knows immediately where the resources are, and typically where are they assigned, what is their level of utilization, and whether they are authorized to work on projects or not. So there is a sincere effort to move from what are called sandbox projects, which are a lot of hidden projects that go on in organizations, and make them all budgeted and authorized in order to make sure that all the work that is happening within the organization is being done against an approved budget for those projects. There are no sandbox projects anymore, and the effort is to track overall headcount and make sure that they're all accounted for and are being used for objectives that are in alignment with the organizational objectives. So ultimately, therefore, you need features in the PPM tool which allows you to see organization-wide resource reports, and organizational focus on resource utilization goes up. And typically, what happens in the PPM tool implementation is that the project team focuses. There is an increased focus on the project team's part to do greater time and effort tracking against planned work. What remains untracked, however, is the unplanned work, because the fact is that in a lot of our customers, not everything gets defined as part of the project Gantt chart or the project WBS. A lot of work happens outside of that, and that continues to remain untracked. In the third stage, which is where typically we see most of our customers stay, and or prospects that we talk to, they stay and do not go beyond, is where you now identify corporate objectives. So there is an overall organizational effort to define what are the overall business objectives that organizations are striving to achieve through their IT initiatives or through their regular project initiatives, whether it is revenue maximization or earning maximization or resource optimization, etc. These objectives are defined and laid out so that everyone is aware of them, and there is at least some basic project alignment against those corporate objectives. So there is at least some effort made to say each project as it gets started, what objectives is it supposed to fulfill, and how what aspects of those objectives are meant to be achieved with the execution of those projects. So the features typically needed from a PPM tool will include things like ability to document the corporate objectives in a way that they become visible to everybody, and also the ability to tag projects with those corporate objectives. So therefore, anytime you look at a project, you are easily able to say what are the objectives that are identified that are associated with this particular project, and what is the set of parameters within those objectives that the project is supposed to satisfy. And in reality, what happens is that the objectives are identified and projects are tagged, but there is a lack of effort beyond that, and that is what we will focus on in the next two stages. So the next stage is typically the resource optimized. So now once you have got all your projects in one place, you've got all your resources identified and at least tracked, and you've got your business objectives identified. Now the effort goes to what is the actual allocation and utilization so far, and how do you optimize that further so that you are able to get maximum throughput for projects. and therefore here's where you start getting into significant effort at resource what if scenarios, multi-scenario comparisons, and then selecting of the right scenario for executing the project. And again, while that is the objective, in reality what happens in most organizations is that there is a mismatch in the reported utilization versus the actual utilization. One of the key reasons for that is because of the fact that you are while you may be tracking planned work, a lot of the unplanned work goes on which doesn't get tracked through the project WBS or the project plan, and therefore while a project resource might report that they're working 20 hours in a week on project 1 and 20 hours a week on project 2, in reality they might be putting in 60 hours because 20 hours are going into defect fixes or follow up with customers or meetings and things like that, and don't get the visibility that they need to in order to account for overall resource utilization. So there is a mismatch that happens between actual utilization and the reported utilization, and there is, because of mismatch of data, there is an inability to generate proper alternative scenarios that you can actually select from, and so similarly the resource allocation to project continues as is, because since you're unable to get an exact picture of the resource utilization and you are unable to generate alternative scenarios, so therefore allocation of resources continues as is, and resource optimization, which is an objective of this stage, doesn't really happen as is wished. And finally, the last stage, which is really where most organizations want to go, which is the projects are optimized against corporate objectives. So now here the overall benefit that people are expecting to get from a PPM tool is to be able to analyze, measure, and tweak projects based on performance against corporate objectives. So if you are able to do a quarterly review of your projects and effectively see how well they are meeting corporate objectives, and then take decisions around continuing to fund those projects or to kill those projects based on the project scores. That's the overall objective, and the features that are needed in the PPM tool requires a classic sort of portfolio analysis, which allows portfolio analysis teams to be able to review the project performance, give their own scores on the performance of each of those projects, and be able to report those scores in a centralized project portfolio management dashboard, and be able to do real-time project scoring based on the project execution data, which is how are the projects actually performing on the project, how are they doing in terms of the project parameters that they have, whether it is quality, whether it is time, whether it is cost, how real time is that execution data. The reality that happens in most cases is that the project analysis, or rather the portfolio analysis process, is not established or is poorly established. So that whole process of a quarterly appraisal that needs to be done of all the projects in the portfolio, the way to collect data against it, the way to do weighted scoring of those projects, that never gets established. On the other hand, project teams themselves don't get to see much of the benefit of the PPM tool, and they tend to feel left out. They're seen primarily as people who report time on activities on the project and don't really get any benefit further from there, and therefore as a result the quality of data collection suffers. And this is one of the most common themes that we hear from our prospects and our customers, that ultimately the PPM tool does not get that organizational buy-in that you would expect a tool like that to have in order for real success. And the fact is that since the PPM tools focus on the sort of higher level objectives of the organization and metrics and measurement against those objectives, therefore execution level data, whether it is data against progress on tasks, whether it is on progress on requirements or test cases that are being executed, or defects that are being fixed, or deployment that is happening, if a lot of the planned as well as unplanned data tracking against that does not happen effectively. And fundamentally life, this is a statement that we hear a lot from our customers, that life at the project level remains unchanged, and that causes some of the sort of biggest level of dissatisfaction with implementations of PPM tools. So what are some of the, just to sort of summarize some of the things that I talked about, what are some of the challenges in reaching stages 4 and 5, which is really where most organizations want to go, is that if you look at a typical mix of the various levels at which organizations want to function and the tools and the automation that happens at these levels, you can look at it in the sort of 3-layer tool. At the bottom you have the project or the application execution or operations of an application. At the second level, you have the project management function, which is where project managers are defining project plans, monitoring projects against project plans, and so on. And finally, you have at the top level, you have project portfolio management. Before organizations go in for a PPM tool or any sort of an enterprise reporting capability, most companies operate with a combination of desktop and client server tools, which could range from email, Microsoft Office, Word, and Excel are very common, and maybe some tools which handle critical parts of their operations, which is typically defect management tools or ticket management tools or configuration management tools, because ultimately in IT organizations, code and management of code becomes a key part of key aspect of their operations. So therefore, there is automation that exists in specific buckets of an overall life cycle, but key parts of it remain unautomated. Project management typically takes place in I would say in 70 to 80% of our customers that we see and organizations that we meet. It takes place with the help of MS Project, Excel, and email. I missed putting in email here. So email becomes a key part of how projects get managed through communication that happens over email, which has its own challenges. And typically, project portfolio management is being done. Any kind of cross-project reporting is being done with Microsoft Excel. This is how they begin. And when you start with implementing a PPM tool, the picture changes, where now you have a PPM tool that is implemented at the top, but life in the trenches typically tends to remain not too different. So at the project execution level, you continue to use the same tools that you might be using at this point, whether it is email or Excel or defect management tools, ticket tracking, etc., or configuration management. And therefore, project execution data collection and the quality of data that you're collecting at the project execution level remains pretty much unchanged. And therefore, there is a lot of manual or flat file based data entry that happens to the PPM tool, and that first of all is suspect from a original source perspective, that you're collecting data from systems that are not being uniformly used, and secondly, it remains a fairly manual process of implementing or updating the PPM tool. So as a result, what happens is you get into a lot of dissatisfaction with the overall PPM tool implementation, and slowly it starts to peter off. Analyzing that from an overall perspective, if you look at it, look at where the sources of the problems are, we have seen a few clear trends, and some of these are shared here. So firstly, there is an absence of a sort of corporate or a strategic process framework that says, okay, here we are at stage 1, how are we going to move from stage 1 to stage 5? There is fundamentally a lack of experience amongst project managers, PMO, corporate managers, and of course certainly the project teams, which prevent them from planning and preparing for it in an effective manner. Secondly, there is no historical data, because so far organizations continued operating at a project level independently. There is no historic data to set up benchmarks against which you can measure, and therefore there is an overall lack of professional expertise which is needed when you're implementing an organizational tool such as a PPM tool. That's on the one part, which is a sort of an overall lack of preparedness for organizational change management. But second, fundamentally there is a lack of focus in what are the changes that you need in terms of process. So while you might implement the tool, typically unless you have changed the process and made sure that the tool follows the process, there is again a disconnect between the two and failure of the implementation of the tool. So for example, just basic processes or standardization that you need from a cross-project comparison and data consolidation perspective, so that you have a common set of processes, a common set of measures, and a common set of metrics. That is not effectively done before you start to implement the PPM tool. And the processes that you need are not just those that enable you to do project management and help you measure project management metrics like earned value or higher level project PPM metrics, but also execution level metrics, whether you are doing application development, whether you're doing application maintenance, and typically this is from an IT organization perspective. The execution lifecycle processes at whether they're software engineering processes or infrastructure process, they need to be in place to some extent at least, so that there is a standardization of data that happens and you are able to collect metrics against that. So therefore 100% accuracy in cross-project comparisons is never achieved because you lack that standardization. Clearly one of the challenges that most large organizations or organizations at any size faces, there is a legacy of tools that they have, and they need to figure out what to do with them, because it's not easy to integrate all of those disparate tools that exist on people's desktops and for different functions, whether you're doing requirements management or project management or test management, etc. That lack of a centralized repository for collection of data and reporting of data, that becomes very challenging. Another thing that is more of a political problem, not so much of a tool or a process problem, is that there are sandboxes, there are buckets of we call power hierarchy, and there are too many projects that are going on which people are reluctant to get rid of or to report to management. So therefore, the fact is that hidden projects or hidden resources continue to remain in the organization and don't get reported for a variety of reasons, because it is somebody's pet project, or it is it came out of somebody's budget and they do not want to share that. And therefore, for a lot of companies, this itself becomes a huge challenge to overcome. First of all, eliminating sandboxes so that you now have an organizational view of overall projects and overall resources, and that detracts from the implementation of the PPM tool. And finally, what happens is, as I said earlier, there is a complete lack of involvement from the project team, and the PPM tool essentially becomes a glorified reporting tool. Over a period of maybe 12 to 18 months, the overall usage of the PPM tool drops off. People say, hey, this is not really for us, it is really only a management tool, and there is really no organizational or strategic benefit that is achieved through implementation of such a strategic tool. So our belief is that there is a need to look at the overall process, an end-to-end process, so to speak, and implement this entire set of tools in a way that allows for an overall benefit for the organization, rather than for just short-term gains that you might get from a reporting perspective. Just one more slide here on the fact that unplanned work. This is something that organizations don't understand, that there is a tremendous amount of work that happens in an unplanned way. When we say unplanned, what we mean is it is not part of an actual project WBS or an actual project plan that somebody wrote up. So a lot of work happens outside of the PPM work breakdown structure or the PPM Gantt chart, which doesn't get tracked. And to track that work, you need a supporting set of processes and supporting set of tools that ensure that at least there is visibility for that unplanned work, and that over a period of time that unplanned work also gets tracked and gets reported, so that you have effective reporting of actual utilization of resources, rather than just what gets reported in the PPM tool. So that being said, let me share with you what is sort of our overall holistic approach to portfolio management, and what some of our lessons have been in talking to our customers who have taken a slightly different approach to implementing portfolio management initiatives, and that is an integration of a variety of capabilities and tools that we'll see. So the learning that we have, and which is part of the reason for the vision of our overall product set that we provide at Digité, is that fundamentally you need to look at a 4-tiered approach, where you have focus on processes that your organization uses, you have focus on the actual development or the execution work that goes on, which is the execution layer. So that is where we label it as Application Lifecycle Management. The third is, of course, the project management, and finally at the highest level is the portfolio management. So clearly there is a focus that is initially missing, and most of our customers have benefited from this because they've gone about it in a way that they cover all of those 4 layers. But there is need for focusing on the processes that are being followed by the organization before you start implementing a PPM tool. What changes need to happen at the process level, and what needs to go into supporting that overall PPM initiative. The focus needs to be there. And the second thing is just the focus on collecting all of the execution data accurately and in a real-time basis, which also has the secondary benefit, and a huge benefit, that project teams now start to get involved in the overall implementation perspective, because they are the people who are there at the execution level, who are providing you the data in order to make for successful PPM initiatives. So if you look at it from an overall perspective of how typically IT organizations work, you have work that is happening across the application lifecycle. So you might start with ideas or features or application requests that might be tracked in a backlog, in a spreadsheet typically, which is how people start off. You have actual projects that are going on, whether they are development projects, you have implementation projects or maintenance projects, and then of course once an application gets deployed, then there is regular maintenance activity that happens, which itself spawns major or minor release projects. So, and if you look at an overall application lifecycle, it starts with an idea or a feature request. It goes on to the project where you actually deliver that application, and then the ongoing maintenance of that, and finally of course retirement of the application, whereby you start off with newer products or applications that replace the older ones. What is needed to support these is, first of all, of course, basic project management processes which are required for managing those development or implementation projects, or also for handling your releases that are going on in the ongoing maintenance phase of the application. And also you need an overall sort of attention to processes which might cover, how do you handle your request processes, how do you make sure that they are getting prioritized, how do you provide feedback to the business users that their requests are being reviewed, they're being prioritized, and there is a plan to actually implement those requests. There is obviously a process needed for your development or implementation, whether it is you follow agile processes, or you follow iterative processes, or even traditional waterfall processes. But you do have some processes that need to be defined in order to make sure that there is commonality of data and there is standardization of measures and metrics that can bubble up from bottom to top, and you're able to accurately report progress at the execution level. And finally, of course, you have to have maintenance processes. And this is really the scenario that we see with most of our customers who sort of see the end-to-end vision of application lifecycle management, that you need to focus on the entire cycle, not just the project itself. And the reality is that you need to have portfolio analysis being done at each of those stages. So you need to do portfolio analysis of new requests that are coming in to see which requests need to make it through. You need to be doing portfolio analysis of projects that are there, that you can see which projects are doing well, which projects are not. And you need portfolio analysis at the application level to see which applications are continuing to meet their corporate objectives, which applications are costing too much to do and might need to retire, etc. And this needs to happen in a holistic way so that you can see what are the sort of conflicting demands for resources, for requests that are coming in, for projects that are being done, and for applications that are being maintained. That holistic view and the process definition along that holistic view is critical, we believe, for successful PPM initiatives. If you don't have this, you might start off by implementing the PPM tool per se, but very soon you'll find that you are unable to meet the overall objectives with which you started off, because there is lack of involvement of people, there is lack of availability of data, and there is lack of sufficient visibility that need across the life cycle of this entire work that happens. So overall, Digité's experience has been that you need to focus on the 4 layers, so to speak, that you see here of process governance, application lifecycle management, project management, and portfolio management. One of the questions that we address or we sort of face all the time is, do you do top down or do you do bottom up? The fact is that PPM tools have been in existence for a much longer time than ALM tools have been. So a lot of organizations have already implemented a portfolio management tool or a project management tool. They haven't yet done anything for the lower level. On the other hand, a lot of our customers have started off with the lower level, where they have implemented very strong execution processes using an ALM tool like Digité or any of the other tools that are available in the market. But they have built a solid foundation of the basic processes that they need to have in place, and they have built the sort of project execution tracking capability. And now they are moving on to the higher levels of project portfolio management. So there are pros and cons of obviously adopting both, depending on what your personal situation is, whether you already invested in a certain set of tools, and or whether you're starting vanilla and you now have the choice. But clearly, based on the findings of our customers, there is benefit in considering both the options and then seeing which is the one that suits you best. From our experience, clearly we have seen that the existence of processes and accurate data capture and accurate project execution data is definitely very helpful when it comes to successful portfolio management, because unless you have those in place, the portfolio management initiative or the portfolio managers do not get the right data or the right visibility in order to make effective decisions on those processes. And some of these benefits are listed here. So things like automatically generated data that is fed to the PPM tool, or uniformity of process that we talked about. The fact that we are able to now track unplanned work. One thing that, and I'll just go back to the previous slide for a second. One of the things that we've seen ALM tools do very effectively is that they are able to provide feedback to management on where there might be unplanned work going on. The project plan will say, you know, I'm doing requirements, I'm doing design, I'm doing development, etc. But it might not have specific tasks that track maybe defect fixing or customer issue handling or project planning or meetings, etc. And some of the additional tools that you use along with the application lifecycle management do help you capture that unplanned work and therefore provide better sort of feedback to the PPM tool or the project management tools even to say how do you better plan your next set of projects which take into account some of the unplanned work that goes on. Overall, there is greater accuracy of data. There is no question about that once you have processes defined and sort of execution automated, and ultimately there is a greater visibility to the sort of unplanned pockets of work that go on in an organization, the sandbox projects, so to speak, and there is a better ability of the organization to tackle them, whether you want to simply bring them into the official fold of projects that are being done or whether you want to kill them. That's completely up to the management of the organization, but at least you get the visibility to be able to manage the overall implementation of a PPM tool much better. So overall learnings, what are some of the imperatives that we see is, first of all, you want to have a complete or an end-to-end vision for the process, not just implementation of the PPM tool. You must have organizational process focus, which means that one needs to decide what are the sort of minimum processes that are needed at each level in order to provide for accurate data reporting, to provide for involvement of all of the project teams, and to make sure that overall strategic and operational levels are adequately covered in those process definitions. And it doesn't mean that everyone needs to be a CMMI level 3 or level 5 organization. You can start with just enough process that allows you to get data at the right levels at the right time. It just so happens that Digité customers tend to be at level 3, level 4, level 5, but the fact is that you can start off by defining minimum set of processes that you need in order to ensure accuracy of data, consistency of data, and sort of automated collection of that data. And clearly there needs to be an organizational buy-in that requires involvement from the operational level as well. The project teams need to feel to be part of that overall initiative and should not feel left out after a few months because they are not getting any benefit from the implementation of the PPM tool. And all of this obviously needs that you have a holistic view to the tools and technologies that you want to adopt in your organization. It is not just a PPM tool, it is not just an ALM tool, it is not just a process management tool. You want to have some element of all of them that lets you manage your overall IT organization much more effectively than otherwise. So in a way, we have come up with our own sort of revised model of what would be a good way to look at adopting a PPM tool, and we again sort of split it into 5 levels. So at the level 1, when you're starting off from let's say a Excel, Microsoft project, and email-based environment of looking at individual projects, is that you first establish some minimum end-to-end processes. It needs to have some common objectives that get defined so that everyone is aligned to those minimum processes. The next thing is to have project execution environment automated and optimized. So therefore, you empower project teams. You focus, you sort of highlight to them what are the key requirements from or key expectations from project teams and why they need to be involved in it as an overall exercise. And the third level then is to get to a PM environment optimized. So now when you have execution processes defined, you have got the project teams involved, and you have project managers aligned to that overall method of managing projects in a cohesive manner. Then you can go on to the next step of saying, what are the PPM processes that I need to establish? So now you're looking at it from a much more effective place where project data is available accurately and on a timely basis. The entire teams are involved, and therefore there is a greater buy-in of the overall process, and there is greater involvement in implementing that PPM tool and the infrastructure that goes along with it. And finally, once you have that the tool set up and infrastructure optimized, then you get to the organizational level, and you have an organizational level optimization that you can aim for. So in our experience, at least, the progression from level 1 to level 5 requires that discipline, that you pay attention to all of the levels, and you take everybody along with you in order to make sure that everybody feels involved. That data is available at the right level. Processes are in place that enable you to collect the data and to make sure that from a process perspective nothing is left short. And then you get to a much more effective implementation of the PPM tools. So how does Digité help here? Just a quick overview of the help that we can provide, and this is a bit of a sales pitch for our products and capability that we bring to the table. So Digité's your vision of how IT organizations and any other organization that is looking to do projects successfully need to manage them is to look at all of these three things in a common sort of framework. So you have process governance, you have project and portfolio management, and you have integrated application development, product development. A lot of our customers are not IT organizations; they're actually product organizations that are building products which might be hardware, software, automotive products, financial products, and so on. So it's not necessarily just applications and software that we look at. Our customers use it for a variety of different purposes. But the important thing is to look at all of these three things in a holistic way. Just a quick look at deeper dive into the capabilities that we provide in each of these areas. So if you look at it, we have a complete support for defining processes, however lightweight those processes might be or however sophisticated those processes might be. You do need to have some ability to say that here are my processes, here is where it is available, so that project managers, when they're starting new projects, are able to say, here is my process for doing an ERP implementation, or here's my process for doing a CRM implementation, or for building a new app. And they should be able to easily understand it, tailor it to their requirements, and be able to use it effectively. And the process could be agile, could be waterfall, could be iterative, depending on the process, your own situation, and the kind of process that you already use. You should be able to easily adopt those processes or automate those processes using this tool, and be able to effectively use them across projects. Those should then feed into a typical portfolio project management or a program management capability, and Digité provides a lot of features here that get typically used by most organizations, whether it is program management, project management, or resource management. We integrate fully with Microsoft Project in a two-way manner, so you can sort of retain your investment in Microsoft Project. Nearly 70 to 80% of our customers typically are Microsoft Project users, and they're able to roll that in easily with the use of Digité. And sort of typical capabilities that you will see, whether it is risk management or document management, etc., and of course the standard portfolio management capabilities. These go hand in hand with your process definition. And finally, of course, on the ALM side, if you are an IT organization that is involved in either application development or maintenance or implementation of third-party tools, all of that requires some level of ALM capability, which allow you to define requirements, deliver to those requirements, and manage them on an ongoing basis. And again, we provide a lot of capability around that. And most of our customers typically use all three in a sort of cohesive way, which enables them to build bottoms up, to define processes, to execute projects based on those processes, and then to go on to do higher level things around portfolio management and meeting of organizational objectives on implementing such a tool set. Now, having said that, just to add to that, having said this, it is not necessary that you have to use all of Digité's tools. You can continue to use whatever tools you may have, and we have a very solid and very strong integration framework that allows us to integrate with your tools that you may already have internally, and you don't want to replace. And we have done that for a number of tools, whether they are commercial tools like an SAP or an Oracle or other in-house tools for timesheet and timesheet tracking or other ERP functions, or they might be software engineering or application development type of tools, whether it is development frameworks or configuration management tools, test management tools, etc., etc. So we have extensive experience in handling these tools and integrate them and provide that overall framework for organizations to be able to see projects and portfolios throughout the organization. Just a quick word about Digité. So we provide leading edge tools which sort of cover the overall ALM plus PPM umbrella and includes process. We have over 75 customers worldwide, and some of the most sort of well-known names in the industry, whether they are corporate IT customers, there is engineering companies, or there are IT services and consulting companies. We have a range of customers that use Digité. We have nearly 250,000 active licenses that are being used worldwide. We have headquartered in the US, and we have presence in US, Europe, India, and actually Latin America as well. We have customers there now, and we have sales presence through partnerships in each of these geographies that are listed here. We have some very strong partnerships with global organizations such as TCS and Wipro that allow us to approach their customers and use Digité for effective process governance initiatives as well as for PPM initiatives. We have been covered in various Gartner documents as well, especially in the ALM market scope that came out in 2010, along with several other vendors. So there has been a very good sort of traction and coverage to Digité products and tools over the last 8-9 years. Just a quick look finally at some of our customers that we have. Again, I did give you a list earlier, but just to give you another look at what some of our customers are and the sort of different geographies and different segments that they come from. So with that, I guess we have roughly about 10 or just over 10 minutes left for the webinar to end. And at this point, if there are any questions that you have, we'd like to certainly address those at this time. So Ravish, do you have questions that you would like to take up?
Yes, there are a couple of questions, and we might start with a question from one of the attendants that says, okay, now we have all the idea, or if we know what PPM is and if we want to implement it, but how do we incorporate the whole idea of PPM not only in our business unit level but across the whole organization, where different business units have their own set of processes and different data set at this point of time?
So that's a great question, and I think again as I sort of talked about that at the end of towards the end of the presentation, that typically when we go to organizations, there is a wide variety of tool sets that might already exist, whether these are desktop tools or whether they are sort of departmental tools. There is certainly an effort that is needed to incorporate all of those or integrate all of those in a way that is the least cost to the organization, and at the same time provides that minimum set of data that you need in order to be able to report data accurately at the top level. And that also refers to the fact that you need to have not just the tools but also the common processes that allows for a common understanding and definition of the basic parameters that you want to collect data on and to be able to consolidate and report on them. So it is important both to have the process established and to have a tool set, integrated tool set established that allows for data to be collected effectively. And this need not be just for IT, it can be outside of it for business organizations as well. So a lot of our customers use it not just for managing IT projects but also for projects that are external to the IT organization, whether they are sales campaigns or marketing campaigns, whether they are internal projects for running some HR initiative, just a wide variety of projects. A lot of our customers have also used us for infrastructure type of projects and engineering projects and got the same kind of results. So certainly a wide variety of projects can come up in a single PPM environment, and what is needed is the common process infrastructure and a common or integrated tool set which allows for that common definition to be built upon.
Thanks, Mahesh, for the. I think we have one more question. It says we have this entire stack of ALM, and then moving forward to the process governance at the bottom of the pyramid, and the top of the pyramid we talk about PPM. Right now, one of the person who asked the question, he says that we don't have any of this in our organization. Where should we start from?
All right, so another good question. With a lot of our customers, we have experienced this challenge with. We have seen them move from some very basic tool sets such as just Microsoft Office, Excel, email, and maybe Microsoft Project on the management side, and on the execution side, you're looking at some very basic coverage in terms of defect management, software configuration management, IDs and development environments that developers have. But there is a lack of overall automation in terms of the entire application lifecycle. So where do you start? It can appear to be fairly overwhelming in the way that you want to look at the overall organizational challenge. And our advice typically is to start in phases and start small. So take some of your basic challenges or the most pressing challenges first in terms of project execution, and adopt those tools to begin with. If required, integrate with existing tools, because that might simply facilitate some of the organizational change management challenges that you might have, and then go from there. So even if you look at an integrated tool set like Digité, you don't necessarily have to implement the whole product to begin with. You can just start with as something as simple as project management and timesheets, and then go on to handling defect management and issues tracking, which a lot of our customers do, and then go on to requirements and let's say test management, and at the bottom start to implement or define processes that will make the most sense for most projects, and start to implement those processes across the organization or across those projects. So there are many approaches to doing this. Obviously, the most structured approach, which most of the mature organizations take, is to first get their entire process definition automated in the Digité process governance module, then go on to automate project execution processes around the delivery of their actual work products, and then go on to the higher levels of implementing portfolio management. A lot of our customers who have implemented our ALM capability are now slowly adopting our PPM capability as well. Of course, we have customers who started off with our PPM capabilities and are now going downwards. So there are multiple ways to do this. Again, it depends on what your personal situation is. If you have no tool implementation, perhaps the bottom up way might be the best way to start.
Thanks, Mahesh. Do we have any more questions? You can ask for a mic and we can pass on the mic to you, or just type in the question in the chat box and I can speak it out loud to Mahesh as well as for other attendees. So I think we have no more questions at this point of time. So if you have any questions at any later point of time, do contact us at marketing@digité.com and we will be more than happy to help you. For more information, you might also want to visit to www.digité.com, and the slides will be available for you to download after the webinar is over. So feel free to download it. If you have any questions, get back to us. That's great, and we will be more than happy to answer those questions.
Thanks, Ravish, and thank you everybody for taking the time today to attend this webinar. I really appreciate your time. And once again, as Ravish said, do visit our website or do drop us a line, and we'd be happy to talk to you and understand your particular situation and see how we might be able to help you. Thanks, everybody.